So what happened to Solomon? Look at verse 4, chapter 11. For it was so when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not fully follow the Lord, as did his father David. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the people of Ammon. And he did likewise for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Wait a minute. This is Solomon? The wisest of the wise? The one who wrote Proverbs with so much wisdom? The one who had seen God twice? Had heard that his very prayers were heard and answered in heaven? Yeah. You see, the Lord gives us instruction in the Word. Not in order to keep us from having any fun. Not to keep us from being with the rest of the world. And, well, yeah, he does do that to keep us from the rest of the world, I guess, in a sense. But he gives us his commands because they are the source of life. They are the way of life. And Solomon knew that in his head. He wrote about it. Read the Proverbs. He talks about the fear of the Lord. It's the beginning of wisdom. Keep it, hold it, treasure my words close to your heart. Bind them to your forehead. Bind them to your arm. Don't ever let them go. Keep them before your eyes at all times. And here he is building high places. What are high places? Well, in those days, the way they would worship pagan gods is they would go upon a high hill area, usually a clearing or maybe within a grove of trees. And then depending upon the particular god, they would either build an altar or perhaps they would carve an existing tree or bring in an Ashtoreth pole. You see, Ashtoreth was the female Canaanite goddess, usually seen as the female goddess along with Baal, the male god, and was a goddess of fertility, was a goddess of sexual enjoyment. And what they would do is they would build these Ashtoreth poles, which were basically the image of a naked woman. And they have found archaeologically thousands of these little figurines in Israel throughout, dating back to this period, and from this period forward, thousands of them. So they were building these little things so you could have a little one in your house. And they would come and gather around this pole and worship Ashtoreth through their sexual immorality. And we will find in the history of Israel, as we follow it going forward in the rest of the book of 1st and 2nd Kings, we will find this a continuing problem. They went and worshipped on the high places. They worshipped the gods on the high places. They built an Ashtoreth pole. They worshipped Milcom, otherwise known as Molech. Molech worship, probably not at this time in Jerusalem, though not very far removed from this time in Jerusalem, involved child sacrifice. This high place to burn incense was built on the hillside east of Jerusalem. Anybody know what that hillside is called today? That's right, it's called the Mount of Olives. And on that mount is where he built high places and altars to Molech, to Ashtoreth, to Chemosh. Chemosh, not a lot is known about him as a god, but he was very similar to Molech and also involved child sacrifice. Within just a couple generations, down in the valley of Hinnom, just to the west, southwest of the city of Jerusalem, they did build an idol to Molech. The typical idol was metal, arms outstretched. They would build a giant fire beneath. It would get so hot, it would glow red. And then they would drop the children into the arms of Molech. It was called passing your children through the fire or into the arms of Molech. And they would come and they would be burned to death. Horrible, horrible abominations. These particular high places that Solomon built, they stayed there for over 300 years. They were destroyed by King Josiah just before the Jews, just generation before the Jews were taken out of the land and the things that God told Solomon came true. Wow. What was God's judgment? Well, in the rest of chapter 9, we find that God's judgment for Solomon doing this is that the kingdom will be divided. And from here on out, from this point forward, we will be talking about Israel and Judah as two separate kingdoms. It's no longer Israel, the 12 tribes. Now it's the 10 tribes to the north and the 2 tribes to the south, Judah and Benjamin. That's it. It's divided from here on out. And God deals with them differently. And we will find these gods show up again and again, all representing the same 3 things: power, pleasure, payment. Power, pleasure, payment. It's no different today, is it? It's no different today. The things that we wrestle with can be broken down to power, pleasure, payment. The enemy of our souls hasn't come up with a better routine yet. And so, what can we learn from Solomon? Well, there are a couple of things that I think we can learn. Number 1, there's no time to rest during a race. There's no time to rest during a race. This is not a relay race. Your journey of faith is not a relay race. Listen to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9. He says, "Don't you know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? One wins. Run in such a way that you may obtain it. Everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. They discipline themselves. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, this is how I run, not with uncertainty. And this is how I fight, not as one who beats the air. But I discipline my body, bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should be disqualified." If you run in a race, if you step outside of your track, you become disqualified. In today's world of racing, if they find some kind of substance in your blood from the test that they take, you will be disqualified. Your crown will be taken away. You've got to run according to the rules. But you've got to run, Paul says. He says, I run like this, not with uncertainty. Not with, well, I think I'm just going to go for a little jog out here on the track. No, I'm here to win. I'm here to go through. I'm here to go all the way through. Not just start out with a burst of, wow, God saved me. Hallelujah. Wow, I've been delivered. Hallelujah. That's great. Now I can kick back. No. Brothers, sisters, keep running. Keep running. Keep running. Run like you mean it. Run like you want to win. Not just running for a little jog and a little exercise, but to win. He says, I don't fight just throwing my fists all around. You watch a fighter fight, they are aiming. They are looking for the spot. They are looking for the weakness. They know where that punch is headed, and they hope it connects. They're not just flailing their arms around. That's what Paul says. Hey, look, I look at what I have to fight, and I make sure those punches land correctly. Our race is not a relay race. We can't say, okay, I've run this long. Now I'll pass the baton on to somebody else to run it for me. No. Run to make it all the way through.